Got going. All right, thanks everyone for joining us for our NoCO CoC general membership meeting. We are going to talk today. We have some updates on funding and just some brief updates that I'll share about the continuums work and some committees that we're starting up. And then we have two presentations today. We have Janelle Goodwin with us from the Larimer County Jail that's going to talk about the Stone Soup Collective. And then we have Carol Kennedy from Colorado Poverty Law Project that's going to be talking about their services and also some recent changes to housing policy and how that's affecting or could be affecting folks that we're working with. And then hopefully we'll have a little bit of time at the end for partner updates. And if not, we'll definitely put those in the chat and I'll share them out. But so we will just go ahead and dig in here. If you haven't already, just my last plug, please put your name and your agency in the chat. That's how I take note of who comes to these meetings, and it's really helpful for me to be able to go back in. And then, of course, you can always put your email address if you don't think I have it, or if you'd like others on the meeting to have that. We do have lots of folks from all across Larimer and Weld County, so it's also potentially a good way to make connections with agencies and individuals you may not have met already. So I'm going to first, I'm going to just give a little bit of some updates on the CoC funding, the CoC program competition that is kind of wrapping up here next week. So those of you who are maybe newer to the work of the CoC, something that happens every single year is there's a funding competition that HUD, the Housing and Urban Development Department of the federal government, puts out. And our CoC regions have to respond and basically say everything, all the great work that we're doing to address homelessness in our area. And then within that, we have right now we have about $1.5 million that comes in to our communities through this competition. And the goal every year is to grow that. And so this year we have 9 projects that are applying. 5 of them are permanent supportive housing projects, 2 of which are new. 2 rapid rehousing projects, actually 3 rapid rehousing projects, excuse me. And then we also have a project to support our data system, our homeless management information system, and then a project to support our coordinated entry or CAPS process. And so the competition, we had our local competition where we had our projects apply and went through a local process to rate them and rank them. And now we are finalizing kind of what's called a consolidated application, where we tell HUD everything. We answer a bunch of questions and tell HUD everything that we're doing, and then also include the individual project applications to go and then be sent to HUD to review and ultimately, hopefully, fund all of the work that we're doing. And so that's due next week. So that's kind of the other side of what after the meeting here, that's what I'm going to be working on. So the next thing, as far as funding is considered, I just want to put a plug out there if you haven't already seen the notifications that the Division of Housing Emergency Solutions Grant program is there. You should be working on your applications now. So the Emergency Solutions Grant funds things like street outreach, emergency shelter, homeless prevention, and rapid rehousing. And all applications are apply directly to the Division of Housing, but you do need to have a letter of support from the continuum of care, which would be myself as the person that you would need to contact to get those letters of support. And so I'm going to ask that any requests for a letter needs to be sent to me by next Friday, so September 29th. And just to give me enough time to write them. And the applications are due to the Division of Housing on October 6th. And so I will I'll put a link in the chat once we kind of move to our presentation. I'll put a link in the chat to the Division of Housing's website that has all the information about the application. So if you haven't seen it already, you can go there. But again, there's a
Uh-oh.
funding cycle. They have a program for the creation of supportive housing.
Kelly, you froze there for a second.
Okay, am I
For
back?
me at least. Yeah.
I'm back. Okay, I'm sorry. My internet keeps going in and out. So I'm actually, I'm gonna, just in case. Hopefully it doesn't keep doing that. So, apologies. If I, type in the chat because I can still see all of you. So if I freeze, someone type in the chat and I might have to go restart my router here in a second when the presentation goes. But just wanted to point out there, the Division Housing has their creation of supportive housing for next year. This is the first time they're going to be allowing for tenant-based vouchers. So that means vouchers for creating supportive housing for folks using vouchers that they can go and find their own apartment in the community.
Kelly, you're back now.
Okay. All right. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn this over to Janelle, and I'll come back. I'm gonna restart my router and hopefully that'll work. So Janelle, I'm gonna give this to you, and I'm gonna try to make someone else a host as well, just in case, so that we don't lose the whole meeting. Apologies, y'all. So I'll circle back and give you the rest of the updates a little bit later. But Janelle, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to you. And you can, on the back end, I'll work on making sure we don't lose the meeting.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for giving me some time today. My name is Janelle Goodwin. I use they, them pronouns. I work at the Larimer County Sheriff's Office. I work in the jail. I am part of the inmate programs team, and I'm also the coordinator for our community reentry coalition called Stone Soup. So I know that there are some agencies represented here that are already a part of Stone Soup. So you've probably heard all of this before. I apologize. But for those of you that don't know, Stone Soup is a collective of 30+ organizations and community partners from varying service sectors, including faith-based organizations that have come together to address the issue of recidivism in our community in an attempt to make our communities safer and healthier. We are approaching the problem from many different directions. So not just providing programming in the jail to individuals that will be reentering the community, but also working with families to stabilize those family units, because we know that's a big indicator of recidivism. If individuals have a healthy family environment to return home to, they're more likely to succeed. All of our programming begins in the jail and then continues with the same partner outside the jail. So having that familiarity with that face, already having that established relationship, is very important to an individual's success when they reenter the community. We are also conducting community outreach and education to make the overall community a more reentry and recovery friendly environment. So if our population reenters the community, but they're not accepted as members of the community, which they are members of our community, that makes it really difficult for them to maintain the drive they need to succeed and to stay out of the criminal justice system. We are also working on organizational change here within the sheriff's office, so that we have an environment where all staff are supportive of rehabilitation and reentry efforts. And finally, we are working with our community leaders and lawmakers to try to make change on a more systemic level. So here is the mission and vision of Stone Soup, but really our efforts go beyond even what's just written here. Reducing recidivism is the primary goal, but there are so many things that go into it. As we all know, there are many interrelated problems, especially that affect the criminal justice system. So we are focused on addressing systemic inequities, systemic racism. All of that is part of the work that we're doing. And I'd like to also stress that all of our work is done in collaboration and community with individuals with lived experience, either in the criminal justice system or with substance use disorder. So as part of Stone Soup, we've created a smaller leadership council of 13 members currently, and 4 of our members are individuals with lived experience. So any programming that we're bringing into the facility, any efforts that we're making in the community are all made with input from individuals with lived experience. So we're just going to go through the primary goals that we've set in Stone Soup. This one here is really, we could say, as part of the mission and vision. Everything we do comes back to this when we are creating plans with individuals as they're reentering the community. The plan is targeted to the individual. It's not one size fits all, and we really are strengths-based. I mentioned support for family members. So if one of our inmates reaches out to us and says, my family is experiencing housing insecurity, for instance, we can reach out to that family and try to get them connected with services. We are also trying to bring in more family-based programs. I got the Parent Cafe here with the Matthews House. We are starting that up in November of 2023. And we're really excited because this curriculum is also going to count towards treatment programs in dependency and neglect cases. To talk a little bit more about dependency and neglect cases, there is a new Senate bill that goes into effect January 1st that requires in-person visitation between someone who is incarcerated, a parent or a caregiver that's incarcerated, and their children. So at the Sheriff's Office, we have been making a lot of efforts to get set up so that that process goes smoothly once the bill does go into effect. And with that, we are also trying to get more supportive services such as therapy, family therapy over Zoom. Obviously, our families can't come into the jail to engage in therapy sessions, but we really want to address that intergenerational trauma and avoid intergenerational incarceration. Some of the efforts that we're making to connect with the community, we have tabled at various outreach events. We were at overdose awareness days, and just this last weekend, we did an event called Stone Soup and a Sandwich, where we got together, assembled 300 meals and went out into the community in Fort Collins and Loveland and distributed those meals to our community members that are experiencing housing insecurity. We talked to them about the services that we can offer through Stone Soup. If anybody needed to get connected now, we facilitated that. And we also wanted to make individuals aware, and hopefully they'll spread the word. So if someone does come into our jail, they know that they can reach out for help immediately, and we can get that process started for them right away. We are always looking to expand our partnerships. I hope eventually that we can expand into Weld County as well. Right now, we are just focused on Larimer County. But if anyone is interested in partnering with us or learning more about Stone Soup, I've got contact information at the end of this presentation, and I'd love to connect with you. So question is, what is the likelihood that Weld County Jail will do this? I am an eternal optimist. So I've done this kind of work in other jails in the country. So most recently, I was at the Washoe County Detention Center in Reno, Nevada. And I mentioned organizational change as being something that's important to supporting reentry efforts. And so everything that I'm doing is also keeping that in mind. We can bring in all of these great programs. We can have all of these great services. But if an individual goes to a program and they are feeling hopeful and then they go back to their housing area and they're met with, well, they just don't feel as hopeful for one reason or another, that can be really detrimental to their success. So I don't know what the culture is at Weld County Jail. I can make assumptions based on things I've heard, but I would be really excited to partner with anyone who is interested in doing this work at the Weld County Jail and support them in that work. So building a reentry and recovery friendly community, as I mentioned, that includes community outreach and education, but that also includes creating spaces that individuals can go to when they have their downtime. One of the indicators of recidivism, which we call a criminogenic need, is what people do with their leisure time. Obviously people need to work, they need to do all of that, but people have downtime as well, and they deserve to be out in the community having a good time. So some of our members of our leadership council have started going out in the community and trying to create at different venues, sober nights that individuals can attend. And I think that's really exciting and really indicative of how Stone Soup understands the complexities of what contributes to recidivism. So I mentioned our peer support. So our peers are, of course, involved in all of our programmatic decisions and how we develop this program, but they are also going to be coming into the jail and meeting with individuals one-on-one and establishing those relationships, and then continuing to work with individuals once they re-enter the community. which is another very important thing, an indicator of recidivism. We know that the company we keep can have an impact on our own behavior and ways of thinking. So having these peers there that have that lived experience, that have been through the same struggles, they're supporting someone as they reenter is incredibly important. So we have been talking a lot with Kelly about this. We all know that this is a challenge in our community. I've also been in conversations with our sheriff, who is very supportive of the work that we're doing, to try to come up with some innovative ideas and see what we might be able to achieve if we sort of think outside the box. As far as transportation goes, we know that that's another barrier for individuals. If they're released from custody and they don't have a way to get to the supportive services that we've lined up for them, there's the likelihood that they will return to a place that's familiar and where there might be substances available. And we don't want that for them. They don't want that for themselves either. But if they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, sometimes it's unavoidable. So one of the things that we're doing right now is we're getting the spin e-bikes. They have a place set aside here in our parking lot, and we'll be giving cards with some money on them so individuals can use those e-bikes to get to services or a stable environment for themselves when they're released from jail if they don't have someone to pick them up when they get out. Job readiness programs are incredibly important. We have partnership with economic and workforce development as well as unified workforce. What's great about unified workforce is they follow the individual that they're working with for a year after they find them employment placement, and make sure that they are connected to other services they might need. And if they find that the job isn't working, they will help them find another job before they quit the one they have. So they get that steady paycheck throughout. Unified Workforce is going to start coming into the facility later this month. What we'll be doing is we'll be going into each of the housing areas, talking about the services that we can provide. And then our inmates will have a chance to sign up for more targeted programs. Honest Jobs is another sort of exciting thing that we have been able to offer. So all of our inmates have access to tablets. Sorry, got a question in here. Initiate discussion. Wonderful. Honest Jobs is a site that lists jobs that will hire individuals with a history of criminal justice involvement, even individuals with felony convictions. And we've been able to get that site to update regularly. So our inmates can always look and see what's available to them. And usually they're surprised that there is so much available to them in the community. We already have quite a bit of spiritual-based programming in the jail. We've had this kind of programming going back years. Everything was put on hold during COVID, but we're starting to ramp that up again. But we're always looking to expand the type of spiritual services that we can offer. And we're looking to how to create that connection from working with an individual within the jail and then continuing to have that spiritual-based support when they leave. We have already started applying for grants. I've got the Opioid Abatement Innovation Challenge grant mentioned here. So we do have a very robust medication-assisted treatment or MAT program here at the jail. So we developed a plan to expand those efforts, including expanded access to a drug called Sublocade, which is an extended release buprenorphine. Right now, we offer Suboxone or Subutex, which gives an up and down sort of effect with the doses. Sublocade is a steady dose that lasts for a month. And that is really good for individuals as they're getting released, and also is sometimes the more appropriate option for individuals while they're here in the jail. Other efforts that went into the plan for the Opioid Abatement Innovation Challenge Grant are a comprehensive reentry program based on 30 plus years of research in the field about what works, as well as in consultation with all of our individuals with lived experience that we work with. All right, so I think I got that done within the time that Kelly allotted me. I want to read this entire comment from Kendra. Can initiate this guy.
Yeah, thanks so much, Janelle. Does anyone have any questions for Janelle, or just the efforts that are going into the Stone Soup? Maybe if Janelle, I don't know if you said at the beginning, but how people could get involved if their agency is not already, and they feel like they might be a good fit.
Yeah, so my contact information is right up here, and you can reach out to me directly via email or give me a call, and we can, get you on the list for the next general meeting, and we can talk about what you want to do to support our population in their reentry efforts and the process for getting programs brought into the jail, as well as what that might look like in the community. Room for Hope. I don't think Room for Hope is part of Stone Soup right now. So the origin of the Stone Soup name, my Lieutenant Stacy Schaefer, was the one that sort of started this just as I came into employment with the sheriff's office. And Stone Soup is a folk tale about a traveler who goes into a town and he's hungry, and he asks the townspeople if they have any food to share, and everybody says no. And so in the center of the town, he builds a fire and puts a big pot on it and fills it with water and a stone, and says, "I'm making stone soup," and tastes it and said, "Oh, this tastes so good, but it could really use some onions." And an individual comes out and adds onions to the soup, continues to stir it and taste it. "Oh, this could really use some carrots," and so on and so forth. And pretty soon we have this very robust soup that can feed the entire community. And all it took was a collection of individuals just bringing an ingredient to the table. So we really can't address the problem of recidivism unless we have all those different ingredients involved, all those partners coming together to support individuals as they reenter the community. I refer to it as a holistic community care approach to reentry. Absolutely, I can share the presentation.
That's awesome. I think for me, one of the things I was just so excited about is the ability to contact individuals while they're in the jail. I know with our coordinated entry process, that's been a challenge in the past. So the idea of the tablets and just this process in general, it's really innovative and exciting.
Yeah, the tablets are actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, Kelly, because that is a great way for individuals to connect with our population. If you want to work with someone, we can set you up with free video visits. So the inmates could reach out to you and you can have that face-to-face conversation without even having to go through the whole process to come into the jail and be a service provider within the jail, face-to-face in the jail.
Are there any other questions for Janelle? Well, thank you so much, Janelle.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. And yes, we'll send this out. And anyone who's interested, if we want to kind of try to initiate something similar in Weld County, feel free to email me and I'm happy to be the connecting point to get people to where they need to go.
Yeah, I would love to see us working with Weld County because often we share clients. So that would be really great if we could get that connection going.
Okay, I'm going to keep my camera off because my internet is still not super stable. So hopefully that'll help a little. I, though, am going to hope, like, before we turn it over to Colorado Poverty Law Project, I did want to just put go back to the updates real fast and just put a plug out there for anyone who's interested. We have two task force committees that are kind of going to be ramping up soon that we need participants for. So we have our annual point in time count. It's already that time again. So the point in time count happens in January, and so we have a planning committee that meets before that to just plan everything out and make sure it's a very comprehensive process. So if that's something you're interested in participating, I would love to have that your perspective. So you can either put your name in the chat or can email me about that. And then the other committee that in task force that's going to be happening soon is a more targeted task force, short term. We're in the process of we're redoing our assessment and prioritization for CAPS. So we're looking at how are we going to move beyond the VI SPDAT and how are we prioritizing our different folks for housing and just making sure we are doing that in the most equitable, trauma-informed way. And so there's been quite a bit of pre-work happening and there'll be we're going to be sending out a kind of application of sorts for folks. If you're interested in being a part of this task force that's really working on building the assessment, building the prioritization, it's going to be about a 6 month, we estimate at least 6 months commitment. But please be on the lookout for that because we do need, we definitely want the right people at the table for that because it's such an important part of this process. So if you want more information, you can reach out to me or to our assistant director, Christine, who is not here today because she is in Washington, D.C. at a conference. But I'll put her email in the chat. And then the other updates we have is that we're hiring. So I'll put our job descriptions. We have positions for both our CAPS team positions. We changed them a bit. So we have our data system specialist and our CAPS community specialist. So I'll put those job descriptions in the chat if anyone's interested in looking at them. But otherwise, I'm going to move us along here, and I see Carol on the camera and Erica here from Colorado Poverty Law Project. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Kelly. Thanks for having us. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Sorry, let me go back. My name is Carol Kennedy. I am a housing attorney at Colorado Poverty Law Project. And I'm doing this presentation today with the help of my coworker, Erica Welsh. She's also a housing attorney at Colorado Poverty Law Project. And we're going to give you an overview of the services we provide and then go into some 2023 policy updates. All right, so we'll start out with our mission. The Colorado Poverty Law Project's mission is to prevent homelessness through legal representation, education, and advocacy. And our vision is that we believe that no one should become homeless for lack of access to housing justice. So here's a quick little overview of the services we provide, and I have some slides coming up that will go into each of these areas in more detail. But in general, we do individual legal support, housing navigation, community education and self-advocacy support, and policy advocacy. In terms of legal support, we provide legal information or technical assistance to assist tenants. We also do direct representation to tenants facing eviction. And so I always understand these two things in relationship to each other. So legal information and technical assistance have to do with us providing information about the law to tenants. Technical assistance sometimes will apply the law to the facts of a particular tenant situation and empower the tenant to take steps on their own behalf to sort out their housing situation. And then direct representation is when, one of our attorneys actually takes the case for the tenant. So we'll represent them in court, or we may represent them in negotiations with their landlord, stuff like that. This third bullet point is about our legal clinic. So we are in the Denver County Courthouse Thursdays and Fridays from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. And that's to assist tenants who have return dates in eviction cases. So we'll provide them with assistance so that they can have their court filing in good shape to submit to the judge that day. Here are our three big initiatives. We have a mobile home initiative. We have an attorney dedicated to representing mobile homeowners. We have a young adult program. I think they just recently did a Know Your Rights on student housing. And we have a fair housing initiative, and that's to assist tenants who are facing discrimination based on their protected class status. All right, here's an overview of our typical case types. Number one is eviction defense. We see a lot of non-payment cases. That's just for non-payment of rent. We have repeat violation cases. This is if a landlord says a tenant has violated a provision of the lease more than once. Substantial violation. This is if a landlord says that the tenant caused some serious property damage or committed a crime on the property, and that in the landlord's eyes justifies evicting the tenant. We help out with warranty of habitability. So you're probably all familiar with the warranty of habitability, but just briefly, if a landlord rents out a residential unit, that means they have to ensure that the unit is livable. And so if there are issues, for example, with, not having heat or running water or something like that, that implicates the warranty of habitability. We also do fair housing issues. We help tenants get their security deposits returned. We assist with the Rental Application Fairness Act, which I will go into more detail about when we get into our policy updates. We help tenants who have faced a legal lockout. That would be if the landlord just changes the locks or shuts off utilities or something like that to make the tenant leave without following the judicial process for an eviction. We assist tenants who are protected by the Immigrant Tenant Protection Act. That protects tenants from discrimination based on their citizenship status. We also do domestic violence lease rescissions. If a tenant lives with a domestic partner and that has become a domestic violence situation, we can help that tenant just get out of the lease without penalty. And then just in general, we help with mutual lease rescissions in contexts outside of domestic violence as well. And then the etc., because there's also more stuff that comes up for tenants. Okay, moving on to housing navigation. This is a program that assists tenants with finding alternative, available, and affordable housing. Because oftentimes the tenants we interact with, they need to move on from their current living situation. So we have 2 full-time housing navigators on staff. They're focused in the Denver and Adams counties regions. And regarding the intake process, currently the tenant has to be a CPLP legal client in order to take advantage of our housing navigation services as well. All right, community education and self-advocacy. We do know your rights presentations. So we'll present on eviction law, fair housing, the warranty of habitability, rental assistance applications, leases, the Immigrant Tenant Protection Act. We also created this really cool website called fixmyrental.org. And this has specifically to do with the warranty of habitability. It's a resource where a tenant can go to this website, they can learn all about the warranty of habitability and how it works. And then if they choose, they can enter some personal information and generate a letter that they can then print and give to their landlord, asserting their rights under the warranty of habitability. And hopefully that will get the landlord's attention, get the landlord to come to the unit and repair whatever the issue is. Or at least, if that's not possible, set up litigation so that the tenant can exercise their rights. We also do continuing legal education presentations. And then we offer service provider support. We're aware that we're part of a larger community of service providers. And, I'm just recently, I've been working with our partners in the rental assistance portion of what we do. And so we're there for our community of service providers as well. All right, regarding policy advocacy, we have advocacy at the state and local level to increase protection for tenants. And we collaborate with other service providers in policy advocacy as well. And every year, our deputy executive director, who heads up our policy initiatives, does a really thorough presentation on all of our progress that we made during the legislative session. Okay, so that is the part about the services we provide. And now I'll transition to the landlord-tenant policy updates from 2023.
Carol, before you do that, there's a question in
Yes.
the chat just about, is the community education information online? And then are the services free or only for low income folks?
So our services are free. We typically only serve low income. I think we have income qualifications for services. And then what was the other question? Sorry, I don't have the chat.
It's the community education information online, and it looks like Erica said that gave a contact for like
Right.
asking about training, scheduling training, and know your rights presentation. So.
Perfect. Yeah, Erica's helping me out in the chat today. So I'll defer to her on that. Thanks. Okay, so now moving into the legislation from the 2023 legislative session. Here's just a slide with the overview of the bills that I will go into more detail about. Okay, so first we'll start with HB 23-1186, remote participation in residential evictions. So this bill provides that any party or witness in a county court residential eviction with the option of participating in person, by video conference, or by telephone. So this was an important change in the law because previously the tenant would have to ask the judge every time in their, in whatever county they happen to be in, and if they wanted to participate remotely, the judge could decide yes or no. And that left tenants in a vulnerable position because oftentimes, while it may be difficult for a tenant to appear in person in court because, issues with taking off time from work or finding childcare or transportation issues, that would be a significant burden for the tenant. But now they have the built-in option to appear remotely by video conference or by telephone without seeking approval from the judge. This bill also allows unrepresented parties to submit motions and documents electronically to the court. Previously, that had to be done through the US mail. And it prohibits e-filing or electronic service fees for indigent parties. All right, moving on to SB 23-184, protections for residential tenants. So this bill limits consideration of a prospective tenant's income to 2 times the cost of rent, or for tenants with a voucher to 2 times the portion of rent they are responsible for paying. So just to provide some context, before this bill passed, it was pretty common for landlords to require tenants to earn 3 or 4 times the amount they were charging in rent. And that would include people who had a voucher, which doesn't make a ton of sense since a voucher means that the tenant has guaranteed rental assistance. So the goal of this was just to lower some of those barriers to lower income people accessing rental housing. It prohibits consideration of credit scores and credit history for rental applicants who have a voucher. And it caps allowable security deposits to not exceed 2 times the cost of 1 month's rent. It also clarifies that discrimination and fair housing violations are an affirmative defense to an eviction. Okay, moving on to HB 23-1099. This is the Portable Tenant Screening Report for residential leases. So this bill allows a rental applicant to recycle a recent tenant screening report if certain conditions are met, to avoid paying multiple application fees. And so this is a slight change to the Rental Application Fairness Act that passed in 2019. And that act generally governs how landlords deal with applications and how fees in the application process are assessed. So prior to this bill, tenants were spending a lot of money to apply to different apartments and continually incurring the same fee over and over, which was for the landlord to generate this tenant screening report. And so now that they can recycle the same tenant screening report at multiple properties as they apply, that makes the housing application process a lot more affordable for tenants. And then just to touch on some of the certain conditions that have to be met in order for the tenant to recycle their screening report. The report has to be completed within the previous 30 days. The report must be made directly available to the landlord by the consumer reporting agency that generated the report. And also the tenant has to sign a statement that there has been no significant changes since the report was generated. And that includes, that they haven't been evicted in the past month or something like that. And then this next bullet point, this bill also empowers the Attorney General to enforce the Rental Application Fairness Act and establishes a meaningful minimum statutory damages for violations of the Rental for the Rental Application Fairness Act. And I think that's $2,500 per violation. Moving on to HB 23-1120, eviction protections for residential tenants. This provides most tenants receiving federal disability or TANF benefits with the right to a mediation at no cost and facilitated by a neutral third party before an eviction filing. So this is important to protect our most vulnerable tenants before an eviction case is filed with the court. So once a case is filed, there's an expedited timeline in eviction cases. And so that really puts a lot of pressure on the tenant and increases the risk of an eviction judgment. Whereas if these tenants sit down with the landlord before a case is even filed, it's much less risky for the tenant, and there's a real chance at resolving the issues without having the court involved. On the back end of the process, if the tenant is evicted, this bill ensures that the tenant who receives these federal benefits will have 30 days to move after the judgment enters. And this is a change because other tenants without this protection have 10 days to move. So hopefully that extra 20 days provides the cushion that these tenants need to find their next housing. Okay, moving on to HB 23-1095, prohibited provisions in rental agreements. So this just provides sort of, a list of things that cannot be included in a lease. So it establishes new guardrails concerning the award of attorney fees in an eviction case. Prohibits most leases from including clauses that waive the right to a jury trial, a class action lawsuit, the implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing, and the implied covenant of quiet enjoyment. It also limits the imposition of lease non-renewal fees and other third-party fees. And a lease non-renewal fee is a penalty for not telling your landlord that you're going to move out on a date that has already been set and agreed to in the lease. So it's good that we can limit some of those penalties in those situations. And then it also restricts leases from characterizing fees and utilities as rent for the purposes of an eviction. So an eviction for non-payment can only be for the tenant's non-payment of rent. And so this change means that a tenant cannot be evicted because they did not pay utilities alone or other fees like that. All right, and then as to HB 23-1254, this has to do with the habitability of residential premises. So it modifies Colorado's warranty of habitability law to require appropriate remediation after a natural disaster and allows tenants to terminate a lease if the unit remains unsafe. It expands retaliation protections for tenants who have raised habitability complaints, organized with other tenants, or participated in a tenants association. So a little bit more protective of tenants organizing and exercising their rights. And it allows tenants to give notice in writing of a warranty of habitability issue that they want to raise with their landlord in a manner that the landlord typically uses to communicate with the tenant. So this is sort of a technical point, but in order for the tenant to be protected by the warranty of habitability, it's incumbent on the tenant to give appropriate notice to the landlord. And before this change, the tenant had to give notice in the way specified in the lease agreement. And sometimes that was a way that they were not used to communicating with the landlord and prevented the tenant from giving that appropriate notice. So hopefully this will make it easier for the tenant to give that notification. And then finally, we get to the pet portion. So this is HB 23-1068, pet animal ownership and housing. And this bill prohibits an insurer from considering the breed of a dog. It provides a process for the care of pets when an eviction is executed. It caps pet deposits to not exceed $300 and ensures that those deposits are refundable. It also limits the imposition of pet rent to not exceed the greater of $35 per month or 1.5% of monthly rent. And I think with that, we come to questions. I think Erica's been doing a good job of answering the questions in the chat, but let me just take a look.
I did want to, excuse me, I did want to highlight a question I have not answered yet, which was Kelly's question about how landlords are being informed of the new laws. I don't know exactly how that's happening. I do know I can speak to, there's a large landlord's law firm that represents a lot of tenants in the state, specifically in the Denver metro. They, I believe, do sort of trainings for their clients or informational events, but I don't know that many landlord law firms do that. I also know that in Northern Colorado, more landlords represent themselves and may not have access to counsel. So it actually is likely pretty common that landlords may not know that these laws exist. And so if you are working with a tenant, you may actually be informing this landlord perhaps for the first time if you are speaking with them that these laws are actually in place. And then Allison, I see that you have your hand up.
Yeah, this is unbelievable. I mean, this is what an incredible presentation for this one and Stone Soup. Like, I've been at a lot of continuum of care meetings with presentations, and this to me is by far, I'm completely blown away. So thank you both for all of this. My question is under 1099. Is there anything about late payments? So can you be evicted? So you don't pay, you get a late charge, you don't pay, you get a late charge, then you pay the rent, but you haven't paid all the late charges. Can you be evicted for that?
So under the law, no. A non-payment eviction is only for the non-payment of rent. But we do have to fight about that sometimes with the landlord's council. So it's always helpful when we can clarify in law what rent is. But yes, the answer is no, you cannot be evicted just for non-payment of late fees.
Okay, I'll be sending somebody to you.
Great. So I just accidentally advanced to the last slide, which has our intake form, a link to our intake form. So have that tenant fill it out.
Thank you. She'll be thrilled.
Great.
I had put a question in the chat. I'm not sure why I'm getting feedback. I don't know if I can do anything about it. Sorry. So maybe it helps if I just tell you how I usually proceed. Are you guys having feedback?
Yeah, Shelley, it's very echoey.
Okay. I will not continue trying. And maybe I'll just put it in the chat and later they can respond.
Megan?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, do you all help people who have already been evicted or just helping people through the process before they're officially going through the eviction?
So typically we help people who are going through the eviction process, so pre-eviction, but sometimes, we are able to do something post-judgment. So it's sort of case by case. So yeah, it's worth having them fill out an intake.
This is Kelly. Going back to kind of informing landlords, and I'm wondering if there's a way. I mean, we have city partners, we have county partners, like on the call. Is there information that we could try? Like, I'm feeling like we could have some kind of information campaign of like, these are the new laws, send it out. Like, is there anything that you all have, like materials you have that we could perhaps use to help spread the word? Because like many of the laws that you just talked about are very impactful. I think very impactful, especially for this population. And I don't know if we want to kind of leave it to the housing advocates and to the clients to inform landlords for the first time that, they can't charge 3-4 times the rent, or, you know, whatever else. So I'm just curious if you have anything that, or if there is something out there that we can use to kind of help spread some of that word up here.
Yeah, so I think, I'm not sure. I think this is like the first sort of presentation that we've done with these updates, aside from like Jack, our policy director, does like that really big, meaty legislative update. But yeah, I mean, I think we're open to that. I think Erica put Olivia's contact information in the chat. Olivia Kors is our community outreach coordinator. So I don't know. I think if you reach out directly to Olivia and or pass her email to who you think would be interested in a presentation like this, maybe you can get on the calendar. I don't know, Erica, do we have a more like centralized place other than reaching out to Olivia to set up a presentation?
No, I think that's great. You know, so I think it sounds like there's maybe two ways we can be helpful. One is to do some kind of training, and as Carol mentioned, we're happy to do that. In terms of like of flyers or handouts or one-pagers, yeah, let us check in with our policy director, because he every summer, so this might be something to keep an eye out for next summer. He does a presentation after the legislative session ends, and he goes kind of a deep dive. It's about an hour and a half into all of these bills. So if you are signed up to receive emails from us, then you should be able to be in the know about that, or you can check on our website. But let me check with him and see if he's developed anything written as a result of that presentation, because I imagine that might be helpful to be able to share. So I'll make a note of that, and then I can reach out to you, Kelly, to see if there's anything we can disseminate to the group.
Awesome, thank you. Betsy, and it looks like there's several questions in the chat too. So, start with Betsy.
I just wanted to say that Volunteers of America works with you all, and it's been a great partnership. Thank you so much. This is such a great resource for the entire community. So I was really glad that you were presenting today. I also just wanted to mention that with the changes in the laws, I know we've been working on educating our landlords and bringing them information at times when relationships are going well. And I think that has really helped a lot. So, but would love more information, you know, for sure, that we could pass on to them. But just wanted to say thanks, and everybody, this is such a great resource.
Thank you.
Wanted to jump to a question that was earlier in the chat about the bill that Carol mentioned around SB 184. Carol, I'm not sure if you can see that question, but it's about whether the restriction on consideration of credit history is only for folks with a housing subsidy, like a voucher that's more long-term, or if it also would include tenants who receive short-term rental assistance. And so it's my understanding, and I'm going to caveat that because of course all these bills are new and we're still figuring out how everyone's interpreting them. It's my understanding that the intention of this bill, in terms of not allowing consideration of credit history and the caps on the income, is for tenants with a long-term subsidy, with I believe the intention there, or the consideration there, is that this subsidy is going to be with the tenant for their entire tenancy, you know, or at least the first term of that tenancy. And so, you know, that's kind of the reason why it's applying to them, as opposed to folks who might be getting a one-time rental assistance payment. But Carol, if you want to jump in, if you have a different understanding, yeah, please jump in.
No, I think I have the same understanding as you, Erica. And yeah, I think the name of the game for these new laws is there's still some gray area as we figure out what all of it means. So yes, I'll just echo what Erica said on that one.
I also see another question here in the chat. This is from Shelley, talking about the legal clinic that happens once a month in Fort Collins. I think that's the Ask the Lawyer clinic, which I think we've participated in a couple of times. Let's see. Okay, is it better to send them locally to Ask the Lawyer, or to anticipate that you really can support remotely? So I think so probably my initial instinct is that a belt and suspenders approach is usually a good idea. So if there is something local that the tenant can take advantage of, that's great. Perhaps a housing attorney is participating in that clinic and can point them in the right direction. That tenant is of course free to reach out to us. In terms of the support we can offer, as Carol mentioned, that does vary based on what's appropriate for the case and then our own capacity as a team. So it's hard for us to make a commitment to take a case to full representation before actually being able to evaluate it. But what we can promise and commit to is that if the tenant reaches out via our intake form, they will be connected with an attorney, provided their case is in fact housing related and not outside of our wheelhouse, in which case we would have to refer them out. But that they would be connected with an attorney who could evaluate the case, and at the bare minimum, refer them to an organization who can help if it's not in our wheelhouse, provide technical assistance, or perhaps actually take on the case. Does that answer your question, Shelley? Feel free to, and I know you're having some audio issues. Feel free to.
Hey, Erica. This is Katya. I also work at CPLP. I'm their community navigator and I live in Larimer County. The other thing I can personally offer is I also help with the intake team. So if you do have a client or person you work with that you know is like in dire, like tomorrow they need assistance, I could share my contact information and we can do kind of a warm handoff. I can't do that for every client you send, but definitely the ones who are more like emergency, need to get connected sort of thing. I'll just share my email. And if you want to send me kind of like their contact info and a brief kind of what's happening, I can definitely connect them quicker to our intake team.
So thank you, Katya. Thanks for sharing your email and for chiming in. And then Alison, I do see you have your hand up as well. I think I've got
my question was very similar. You know, like, is there a place where we can just email even a simple question like, can somebody be evicted for non-payment of late fees? You know, and then you could write back, the answer is no, see House Bill 1099, you know, versus doing a full intake just so that we can, you know, kind of have that link.
Yeah, that's a great question. So some of you may be familiar with Debbie Mayer, who is formerly with CPLP, and she was involved in our initiatives in Larimer County because she lived in Fort Collins. She unfortunately recently departed, so we miss her dearly, but I am taking over that role. And so as part of that, I'm happy to be that resource for any service providers, and that goes beyond just, you know, any geographic area. So if you're not in Fort Collins or in Larimer, that's totally fine. You can still shoot me an email. I'm going to put my email in the chat. So I'm glad you asked that question to remind me to do that. Yeah, and you're right. Sometimes you just need a quick answer to a question and it's not necessary for the whole intake process to happen. So if that's the case, feel free to reach out if that would be helpful.
And can we also have the slides?
Yes. We will. What's the maybe the best way is to email them to Kelly and she can get them to everyone. Okay,
yeah,
great.
I'll share all this out. We'll have it available, and then I'll send a follow-up that's like contact Erica for, you know, or whatever. Well, it'll be all available for everybody. Yeah.
Thank you. Incredible and timely.
I know. I hope it wasn't too speedy.
There was a lot of information, so having the slides will be key.
Yeah. Great. All right. Other questions about any of this for folks? Give another minute or two. can always keep, you can always add them in the chat as well. And after that, we can go through, we actually have some time, we can do some partner updates, which we haven't been able to do for the last couple meetings. So I am going to, I'll start with our, so I like to do them in kind of sectors, groups. So we'll start with any agency organization that works with shelters or day centers or street outreach, really the like first point of contact type organizations that are working with folks experiencing homelessness on either county. Please give us a little rundown. What's going on? What updates you have? I know we're kind of starting to get geared up for winter season too. So can either put your hand up and we'll go down the row or just start talking. Yeah.
Allison, I can talk about Loveland for street outreach and shelters. So we have currently 35 beds at the South Railroad facility, the tents, and we'll have another 15, I assume somewhat soon in the next 3 weeks before winter hits. So that's 50. We have historically had 22 at the Loveland Resource Center, but that number is going to go down. So we may only be able to accommodate 20 there, but that would give us 70 spots. I'm concerned that that's not going to be enough. Last year, we served over 70 regularly, but we also had motels. The Loveland City Council a week ago had a conversation around a new facility. And so they have expressed their desire to both get a new facility and move it out of the downtown area. So kind of, we're going to be basically maybe mirror the rescue mission. So that's it's about time that they had that conversation and finally agreed to that. That's a big deal. And then lastly, for street outreach, we got some funding and put out an RFP that nobody would reply to because it was a bit overwhelming for them. So we're about to put out another one and divide it into chunks, and we feel pretty confident that we'll have some applicants. We're hopeful. Thank you.
Thanks. Annette?
I was just going to update that we have quite a number of Venezuelan families that are at Catholic Charities and at ours and using our day center. And so many nights in Fort Collins, and Joe, I'll let you update your portion of it. We are full at Family Housing Network and our day center is full. We are not able to do any more intakes until some of these families move through us and into housing. So we'll complete the intakes that we have this week for day center use. Our overnight is full, but we will not be, for the next several weeks until people move into housing, we won't be able to accept any more for our day center use.
On that, I just read this morning, and I don't know, I don't have much context for it other than the New York Times article, but it looks like the federal government has approved Venezuelans for work permits up to like 500,000 of them. So
good news.
Yeah, I'll dig into that. It was just this morning, and I only read like the first 2 paragraphs of the article. But
thank you for that, Kelly. That is great news for us today.
Joe?
I'll keep my update pretty short and sweet, and kind of dovetail with what Annette shared. We're at capacity right now. We've got multiple families on the wait list, and we're turning families away nightly, and the snow hasn't even hit yet. So really seeing unprecedented numbers, especially in regards to families needing services.
So is that at both Larimer and Guadalupe?
I'm looking at the daily specifically for Larimer County right now. At Guadalupe, we still have room capacity for men and women. We're getting hammered with families though in Fort Collins.
Mark?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, this is Mark Fortney with Centennial Board of Cooperative Educational Services. We conduct outreach on a number of different levels, certainly for youth, and we have a lot of different housing options for them through the Family, Youth, and Services Bureau, federally, like Runaway Homeless Youth Act. But specifically, I wanted to highlight too that we are hiring an individual for the Front Range from Larimer County into Boulder County, migrant recruiter. So that would be people that are working with folks that are from Venezuela, Guatemala, Mexico, and of course, people that are here, anyone, but it's definitely people that are engaged in agriculture. Even if they applied, they came from Venezuela or Texas, and they're looking into maybe working at the Noosa Dairy, Morning Fresh. Whether they get the job or not, they could potentially qualify for our services. It's a federal civil rights program through the public schools. So I would encourage any of you all, if you know of great people that are bilingual or multi-language, to go to the CBOCES website. I'll put that in the chat too, so that we can be stronger together. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark. Brad.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Brad Rhoda. I'm the Director of Outreach Fort Collins. We're kind of doing what a lot of outreach teams are doing, is probably making plans for winter because it's right around the corner somehow. So meeting with our friends from Fort Collins Rescue Mission as they're doing an overflow for the winter, seeing how we can be best be of support to them. We're also working on, we received some grant monies to do a collaborative outreach kind of collaboration, I guess you could say, with Weld and Loveland. So I'm working with Allison and Sean's replacement in Greeley to get something rolling for 2024 and 25. We're also going through a huge process of potentially offboarding from our fiscal sponsor, which is a really, really, really big heavy lift that I'm really not good at. So I've been doing that for a very long time and seeing if we could actually move on to become our own independent 501c3, as well as doing comp studies, as well as doing compensation studies right now, so we can pay our people livable wages, because they're an excellent team of people, and I want to support them the best I can. And we are hiring for one full-time outreach specialist. If anybody is interested, shoot me a line. Thanks.
Thanks, Brad. Seth.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Seth Forwood. I supervise the Fort Collins Rescue Mission and Harvest Farm. The one real pressing update is same as all of our other shelters. We're turning away people, and we're planning to expand for the winter season. So in August, our latest stats are that we turned away 100 people in the month of August, simply because we don't have space for them, but we are planning to partner with the city. The city has a space that we used last winter season that we're expanding. Last winter, we had about 40, and now we're planning a maximum of 70 beds in that auxiliary shelter. Also, according to the theme of the morning, we're hiring. Hiring seasonal staff is a challenge, as many of you partners know. Those positions are posted on our website for the auxiliary shelter. Please check that out and refer it to others who might be interested. Thanks.
Chuck?
Yes, I'm with Together Colorado here in Loveland, and I'm aware that tonight at 5:30, the Thompson School District, in conjunction, I think it is with the Poudre School District, is going to be giving an update on the development of a youth shelter for unaccompanied homeless youth. That's going to take place in the boardroom there at the Thompson School District. We've been very interested in that, so we're glad to anticipate that update.
Yeah, very cool. And I don't know, not to put anyone on the spot, but if anyone from the Matthews house would like to give a little extra on that, ABS year, just put your hand up.
Yeah, the meeting tonight is for the neighborhood. It's really a space to allow us to discuss with the neighborhood around the shelter what's going on. I can give a brief update to where we are within the shelter space. I think many of us have heard that we did secure funding, and we're getting those contracts ready right now. We are wrapping up the architectural development phase of this, and things are moving forward at the speed that they can. We are lucky in certain spaces in terms of how it will be permitted. So because it is a Thompson School District building, it goes through the state and not city. And so it'll be a little bit faster than what would happen if we were just going through the city and all of that development. We are currently meeting with various community partners and just working on the services array that we're hoping to provide these youth, and more information will come out when it's available.
Yeah, and just so y'all know, we'll plan on having a kind of more like an actual presentation perhaps at a future CoC meeting. It's still very much in the planning stage, but it's an exciting project coming to our area. So we'll keep you updated. Olga.
Hello, Olga Duval, the Salvation Army of Loveland. And I would like to report that the Salvation Army of Loveland have been providing respite hotel shelter for people experiencing homelessness with medical emergency situations. And we have been very busy, and the Salvation Army of Loveland have been serving Loveland and Fort Collins, receiving referrals from the hospitals and medical service providers in both communities. However, at this point, we have expanded all of the funding that we had for Fort Collins, and we temporarily stopped accepting referrals for medical respite hotel sheltering in Fort Collins. But we are continuing with Loveland. We still have funding for medical respite hotels in Loveland. And we are also prepared to go into the flu and COVID season and provide the medical respite hotels or isolation for people experiencing homelessness who will be having the upper respiratory illnesses or contagious illnesses such as flu or COVID. So we are planning on providing the respite sheltered hotels for that over the winter months.
And Olga, is that kind of additional from what you're doing now? So once it becomes like cold and flu season, then there's more available than there is currently?
That is correct. We are expecting to be receiving more referrals with the flu and COVID symptoms like that. We also will be receiving referrals from not just from the hospitals and medical clinics, but also we will accept referrals from the shelters, because people with flu and COVID symptoms are not very good guests at the mass shelter environment. So we will receive the shelter referrals for these cases as well, to put these people in more isolated rooms at hotels.
Awesome. Yeah. Other street outreach shelter or day center updates?
This is Vaedra. May I say something real quick, please?
Of course.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Vaedra Osborne. I'm a Medicaid care coordinator with Rocky Mountain Health Plans. So we're Ray 1 for this area. And what that means is that we provide direct care coordination services for individuals with Medicaid. I particularly oversee the shelter program in Larimer County. And I think that we've really become disconnected through COVID, and trying to recover those relationships has been important. I wanted to extend an offer to Annette. I hear your shelter is overflowing. I also hear Joe Sar. We used to hold hours at Catholic Charities to provide direct access to Medicaid care coordinators. I would be open to doing that again if you want to collaborate on that idea. Currently, I do hold hours at Murphy Center on Friday mornings. They give me an office just so I have a place where I can meet with people at that day shelter and connect them with doctors, dentists, help verify their Medicaid, those types of things. So if anyone in the group would like to collaborate on having hours at your organization, please let me know.
Awesome. Phaedra, would you put your information in the chat? That'd be great. Let's see. All right, we'll transition to housing programs. So any programs that have their, if you have any updates, if you have a rapid rehousing, voucher program, any housers, if there's updates, go ahead and share away. Josh?
I apologize if this has been mentioned already, but we're partnering with Denver Metro Fair Housing. Sorry, Josh with Connections for Independent Living. We're partnering with Denver Metro Fair Housing to put an event on in Windsor serving Weld and Larimer counties. This is a forum for both tenants and landlords to attend on education for tenants' rights and fair housing. It will not be a mixed forum because we've had bad response in the past. There will be two sessions, one for landlords, one for tenants to learn about current fair housing laws. I will drop a link in the chat, but it is going to be October 25th.
Awesome, thank you. Any other other? I know I will just give an update for you all. I've been making the road show to the different city councils and county commissioners, and I've been able to share on the work of the continuum of care and some data for Greeley, City of Greeley, City of Loveland, and City of Fort Collins City Council. And I'm on the calendar to do so for Larimer County commissioners. And last year I briefly spoke with the Weld County commissioners. So those have been really a really good opportunity to share more with our elected officials what's going on in the realm of homelessness and make sure they understand the regionality of it. And yeah, they've been very productive conversations. So happy to have that opportunity. All right. Any healthcare, mental health, behavioral health, medical, any updates on there? Okay. All right. Anyone I'm missing that has anything they want to share?
Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Depew with the City of Fort Collins, and I just wanted to share about a current open funding opportunity we have. So this is going to be our last year granting out ARPA recovery funds. So this is for 2024. There's currently 4 open opportunities for childcare, social services, 24/7 shelter, and resource navigation. Applications do close September 26th. So it's coming up, and I will put the link in the chat to more information, and please reach out with questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Brittany. Okay. All right. Well, if there's nothing else that people want to share, I will give you back 27 minutes to your day. And I appreciate you all being here. I will share out the slides, the notes. We'll have the recording posted on our website. So and just another plug for our website. We have a lot of stuff on there. And so lots of resources, articles, links, best practices, all sorts of stuff. So if you haven't checked it out, go for it. And I will be, I'm sure, talking to many of you between now and the next meeting, but otherwise have a great rest of your September. Bye-bye.
Kelly, can I have you stay on for just a sec?
Yes.